Awesome. Thank you. All right. So to tell y'all a bit more about us, if you're unfamiliar with the Virginia Sexual and Domestic Violence Action Alliance, we call ourselves the Action Alliance for short. We are Virginia's leading sexual and domestic violence coalition. We are a member organization of lots of different members. We work with sexual and domestic violence agencies sorry, my screen is so small, so I'm trying to read up close. Let me open this up so I can see. And we work with allied professionals and individuals. We have over 70 different members throughout the state of Virginia. And a lot of our members also collaborate with the colleges and universities in their communities. And so we support them in that work as well. We're also a policy organization, so we advocate for survivor-centered policy at the federal, state, and local levels. And we also house many different projects, including our statewide sexual and domestic violence hotline, which is a 24/7 service for survivors where they can call or text for support. And we have a hotline for LGBTQ support and for PREA, the Prison Rape Elimination Act. And we also have a training institute where we offer different trainings virtually and in person. So a lot of different programs and projects that we offer. And then I'll pass it over to Raylan to talk about the Red Flag campaign as a project that we have done where we collaborated with colleges and universities, students and staff. So you can see some of that work that we have done and talk a little bit further about those collaborations. So I'll pass it over to Raylan.
Thank you so much. So we're going to get into the campaign for folks who may be unfamiliar or you've heard about the Red Flag campaign and you want to know a little bit more about its purpose, what it's trying to do on college campuses. So the long and short of it is the Red Flag campaign is intended to be used on college and university campuses with and for their student populations. It is typically housed by the office that supports sexual violence, domestic violence, and intimate partner violence prevention and education efforts, and can be done in partnership with residence life, athletics, Greek life, or DEI. And so the goal is to raise awareness about characteristics of unhealthy relationships students should be aware of, help them identify these characteristics, and give them the tools for intervening in potentially unhealthy situations that their friends are in. So it is a social norms campaign that uses a bystander intervention strategy. And we'll talk a little bit more about the frameworks that go into this campaign later on, as well as some resources to explore and be creative with those frameworks. But it's about establishing social norms on college campuses for healthy relationships among dating students. And we know that dating experiences in college set the tone for future relationships for young people. And the Red Flag campaign can be a critical part for students' lifelong emotional and physical well-being. And so we touched a little bit when we were talking about the campaign, who is this for? And so the campaign was designed for and with college and university students to tackle dating violence. It can be and has been adapted on any type of university or college setting, whether that's small, large, rural, urban, city, private, public, even community colleges. And we'll talk a little bit about the ongoing technical assistance we offer to really make this a fit for your campus and your community, because you all know what you need to keep each other safe and change those norms. And again, it is tackling dating violence because we know, unfortunately, college students are at a high risk of either perpetrating or potentially being victimized by dating violence, as well as sexual violence during those college years. And so we'll talk a little bit about the materials in a little bit, but we talk about using the bystander intervention strategy, encouraging friends and other campus community members to say something when they see warning signs or red flags for dating violence in a friend's relationship. And we provide the definition of dating violence as defined by controlling, abusive, and aggressive behavior in a romantic relationship. And knowing it occurs among people who are heterosexual, gay, lesbian, bisexual, asexual, cisgender, transgender, or gender nonconforming, and can include verbal, emotional, physical, or sexual abuse, or any combination of these. And so, because we know all this and the high risk that students may be at for perpetration or potential victimization, that's where this campaign came about, to change those norms and make campuses safer and have students really at the forefront of making that change. And so the history of the campaign, it was originally launched in Virginia, which is where we are located, the Action Alliance, in 2007. So it's been a minute, it's 2024. Quick maths. I won't do it right now because it's being recorded and I don't want to embarrass myself, has spread across the country. So if someone could do the math and put it in the chat real quick so I could just read it as a talking point, I'd love you forever. So it has since then spread across the country to over 400 college campuses, military bases and academies, and community-based advocacy agencies in 48 states and Canada. So it has gone international. It was created in partnership with college students, college personnel, such as a lot of the folks who are in the space today, and community victim advocates. 17 years. That sounds right. Which is like the age of a full college student. Like, we know things have changed in those 17 years, and we'll get into the whole revision process and what came about with this relaunch. And so it was also funded by grants from the Verizon Foundation, Verizon Wireless, Macy's Foundation, and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. So that's just a little bit of background when it was originally launched in 2007. But even before the launch in 2007, there was a lot of work done with focus groups, working with local sexual and domestic violence agencies, college campuses, to hear how folks were talking about dating violence and what changes they wanted to see. So when we went on to embark on this revision process, we took some of those focus groups, the ways that knowledge was collected, and updated it for 2024. So we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But the Red Flag campaign has been around for a minute and has created some really great change. We've seen some really exciting things folks have done with implementation. There might be some folks in the space who have implemented themselves. And so just wanting to update the terms of how young people are understanding and responding to violence on their campuses. Now I will pass over to Ari to talk a little bit about the materials that make up the campaign, and then we will get into more about the revision process.
Yes, so if you haven't seen the campaign before, if you buy a package of the campaign, it comes with these three specific materials. So one, it comes with the posters, which the posters have been very popular, and you know them when you see them. You're like, that's the Red Flag campaign. And so the posters, each series of posters, which we'll talk a little bit more about later and show you some of those examples. Each series has about 8 different images where you have someone holding a red flag. And then on the flags, there will be different examples of warning signs or red flags that someone could be in an abusive relationship. And those examples include emotional abuse, jealousy, isolation, victim blaming, coercion, stalking, and sexual assault. And those red flags and their response statements have been in college students' own words and encourage them to say something, giving them examples of how they can intervene. And we have 2 poster series that were the original series, and then we have 2 new ones, which we will introduce and show you some of the added language that is on those posters. And so the campaign comes with those they're 14 by 22 big print posters, and they are front and back. So they have the image of the person and flag on the front, and then they have some more information about each of those different types of abuse or characteristics of abuse on the back of the posters. We also provide about 200 red flags. They are physical red flags, maybe like this big, and they can be put in the ground at your campus. And so these are really great for if you have a campus lawn where a lot of folks hang out, or a common space where people walk by. You can put those flags in the ground in that common area to raise awareness. When people see those, they say, oh, what is that? And then the red flags have the Red Flag Campaign website on them. So then folks can see, oh, this must be related to the Red Flag Campaign. And that can get folks interested and excited about, well, what does that mean? What does that look like? And that's when you can start that launch on your campus. So a good physical representation of what's to come. And then the campaign also comes with the campus planning guide. This is an extensive digital document that has step-by-step instructions for launching the campaign on your campus. It offers examples, resources, handouts that you can print and share with folks. And so we'll dive deeper into those in a few, but that's what the campaign looks like, getting those posters, those flags, and those digital resources.
So I will get into what that revision process looked like when we decided that, the red flag campaign needed some updating, because we know that the ways young people understand and respond to dating violence don't look the same that they did in 2007 or even before that, especially with things such as social media changing the landscape of dating violence. And so we borrowed some of the processes that went into the original launch for the campaign, and that was some listening sessions with campus professionals. And so we brought together stakeholders, that is both campus professionals and community members at sexual and domestic violence agencies who have purchased the campaign in the past, to see how the campaign has been serving them since the last update in 2018. So there were updates about every year or so from 2007 to 2018, and they were revisions, not a full overhaul like this one was. But there was still a gap from 2018 to when we started on this process. So we asked them how the campaign was serving them, how implementation was going, things that they were noticing when they were facilitating and working with peer leaders and student leaders on campus, especially including feedback about any gaps that they have noticed around the campaign. And then from those listening sessions, we decided to embark on focus groups with young people. And so we were very intentional about getting young people from all different types of campus settings. So we had groups that focus on public universities, large public universities, small private universities, including rural universities, and then HBCUs as well. And so we had multiple rounds of focus groups with these different populations that we have identified of current college students. And we hosted these multiple rounds across the Commonwealth to get feedback on messaging, copy, design, as well as those collateral materials that Ari referred to earlier. Some of the questions included, how do you understand dating violence? Describe dating violence in your own words. How do you and your friends talk about it? How do you understand red flags? Since that language is now a lot more common on social media to talk about red flags in relationship. So how do you truly understand them? How would you respond if your friend was experiencing violence or you saw violence in a social setting? So using their own words to describe the landscape of dating violence currently, and using that to inform the next steps in our process, which included having a photo shoot, which we'll talk a little bit more about with the new posters. You might hear us refer to language of Series C and D. We originally launched with those original posters, and those are Series A and B, and we'll get a little bit more into that when we talk about purchasing those new posters and the packages that they come in. So we embarked on a photo shoot that was new for Ari and I. We were really doing model management with current young people in Virginia within those age ranges. And then we worked with a designer, a graphic designer, to update the posters and sort of change how the messaging is presented to folks on the posters. And then we embarked on the content update to the campus planning guide, the facilitators guide, and other handouts that we'll talk about later. And that was handled by an internal team at the Action Alliance. So that was what the revision process entailed. But now I'll get to the posters that we keep referring to again and again. And that's because they're really the highlight of the campaign. Folks really enjoy them and put them all around their campus in different settings. And they're also a good conversation starter. And so, like I said, Ari and I became model management. We recruited and hired 16 diverse student age models. So, from 18, I think maybe up to 25. So within that age range for the new series of posters. And the photo shoots occurred on two local campuses to the Richmond area. So we did one that was a private school to get more of that feel. And then we did our big city school to get that feel as well. We hired and worked with a local photographer. And then, like I said as well, hired a graphic designer to update posters and give them a different look than the initial posters. On the original ones, series A and B, the individual is holding a red flag statement. So you'll see the difference. Folks are holding a flag in front of their face, and the message is written on the red flag. Whereas this time with the series C and D, the individual is seen intervening by responding to a red flag statement. So a slight change in design to change the messaging, because what the campaign is really about is intervening, bystander intervention campaign, intervening when you see these behaviors on your college campus. So we just want to slightly change the messaging and how it came across. And so now there are 16 new posters, 8 in Series C, 8 in Series D, and the added element of microaggressions as a form of dating violence, which we did not have in the past, in addition to the previous elements that Ari named earlier of coercion, excessive jealousy, stalking, emotional abuse, sexual assault, and isolation. And we also updated copy and messaging formed by young people from across the state. And so we're going to share, I'm going to go through some examples of what these new posters look like. They're really beautiful, and we're excited to share them all with you. So you'll see on this page right in front of you, this is the new one for coercion. And so when I said I didn't want to send him nudes, he pressured me and said, everyone else does it. And then you see the young person responding and giving model language that young people can use themselves. You have a right to have your boundaries respected. And this is language that we have pulled from the focus groups that we did with the young people across college campuses. So some other examples, we have one for stalking. It also has the definition, as you could see, for those behaviors. Again, there's the backside that goes into more detail around all the different behaviors or what this looks like in practice, as well as when you see a red flag in a friend's relationship, say something, and the website. And so you see here we have stalking and microaggressions. I'll take a second so folks can read those while I take a sip from my crab coffee mug. And then I'll share two more. One for emotional abuse and another for sexual assault. And we were really trying to be intentional with these new posters, trying to make them as timeless as possible, but also relevant to your college campuses with all the beautiful ways that young people can look and reflecting that in these posters. So we're very excited to share these with you all. And when you purchase the campaign, you will also get digital access to these so that you can share them on social media or however else you would like to share, newsletter, whatever works, as well as the physical posters. And I will pass it back to Ari to talk about some content changes that we embarked on.
Yes, and thank you for the comments. I unmuted myself. We appreciate it. Yes, like Raylan said, we're very excited. It was lovely working with the models and just hearing also students' perspectives and making sure we embody that. And so, like I said, also in the package comes the campus planning guide. And so some additions that we made, we wanted to make sure we highlighted a lot of key information and foundational approaches to violence prevention, because this is a bystander intervention campaign, but we would love to see it scaffolded with primary prevention programming, with other initiatives on your campus, because we know that violence prevention works best when there's a lot of different messages that are meeting different people's needs and showcasing different experiences. So how can we combine all of that for a very comprehensive approach? So in the campus planning guide, we added some information and talking points about anti-oppression work as a foundation for violence prevention, since we know folks who hold marginalized identities and experience things like racism, homophobia, ableism, and xenophobia experience higher rates of violence than those who don't have those identities or experiences. So really thinking about adding anti-oppression work into the campaign and into other strategies on your campus. We also added information about healthy sexuality, how talking not just about what are red flags, but what are the positives? What do we want a healthy relationship to look like? What does pleasurable sex look like? What are those things that we want our students to be aiming for and to be excited about when they're going into relationships? So included some of that information, and then also some resources and information on peer education. So getting students the skills and knowledge they need to feel empowered to lead these conversations on our campuses, to engage in those conversations, to help really launch the campaign or other strategies as well. And then we included updated information, which Raylan will talk a little bit about later, about what it means to do bystander intervention and about what primary prevention means and can look like. So that is in the guide. We've also offered some facilitation. We have a facilitation guide in there that offers different activities for facilitators, again, for staff or for students who can implement those in different spaces as you're launching the campaign on your campus, and also added information on trauma-informed facilitation. So folks can feel empowered to increase their skills on being trauma-informed, since we know that we'll be doing these programming and strategies for students who may have already experienced violence in their lives. And so we want to create trauma-informed spaces when we're having these tough conversations or talking about some difficult topics. So there's some information in there about that in there as well. And then the handouts. We have tons of handouts. If you've had the campaign before, you've seen a lot of the wonderful handouts. When I worked on a campus, I loved the one that has a list of healthy characteristics and unhealthy characteristics side by side. I used to print that and hand that out at all of the events that we did. And we added some new handouts. We added some specifically on characteristics of healthy sexuality and why healthy sexuality is important in violence prevention work. So got quite a few resources and handouts on that you can share across campus or with staff, with parents, with anyone. And then we also have added information on microaggressions, especially since that's one of the red flags that we added for the posters. So what is microaggression and how can that be a form of dating violence? Again, since we know folks who hold certain identities could become targets in their relationships for that type of abuse. So what does that look like, and why is it important to be able to pick that out and to call that out when we see it? So yeah, really excited about these content changes. Thank you, Raylan. And so now, knowing about everything that is in the campaign, we want you to be able to access all of that. So this is what the store, when you go to our storefront website, which I'll share in the chat in a moment, you'll be able to see what is available. So I'll go through each of these. We have a full package and a half package of the campaign. The only difference between those is the amount of posters that you would receive, because we know that some folks, thank you, Raylan put the link in the chat. We know that some folks are coming from smaller campuses, and so maybe you don't want that many posters because you don't have that many locations on your campus where you can put up posters. And we don't want you to have extra stock that you have to store or things that might go to waste. So the only difference between those packages is the size and how many posters you would be getting. So the full package comes with 80 posters. Again, they're 14 by 22 inches. There's 10 of each design. So like Raylan mentioned, each poster series comes with 8 different poster images. And so you would get 10 of those, which would be 80 posters, and you could choose which of the series you would like. A and B being the original, C and D being the new. So you can choose 80 posters of series A, for example. Then you would also get 200 of those red flags that you can stick in the ground or put them wherever you would like. You could even tape them up somewhere if you'd want to do that. And they're about 4 by 5 inches and they are waterproof as well. So if it rains, don't worry, you can still have the flags outside. And again, they have our website printed on them. And then you'll receive the link to the Dropbox, which has the campus planning guide, the facilitator guide, all those handouts. It also has digital graphics and images that you can use for social media to get people hyped online as well. It has templates for buttons if you wanted to make like buttons that you like stick on your bags or whatever. It has some sample items of what other campuses have done in the past, so you can see some implementation ideas come to life. And it has access to our peer educator toolkit, which Raylan will also talk about later, again, highlighting the importance and exciting nature of peer education being led on campuses. So that is what is included in the full package. And again, all of that same stuff is in the half package, except instead of 80 posters, you get 40 posters. And so say if you get a package and you get Series A and you're like, well, I want Series C too. I want one of the new ones. You can buy additional posters as well. And so those are available for sale. And it comes with 40 of the posters. So you can get additional posters without having to buy the whole campaign multiple times. That wouldn't make sense. So you can get more posters if you want some of each different series. And then the same with the red flags. If you have a really large campus or you have different areas of campus where you want to put the red flags up at the same time, you can purchase an additional package of those 200 red flags as well. Again, not having to repurchase everything. So it's nice having those extra options to customize it in whatever way you need for your campus, your size, your population, all of that. You can also purchase some of the swag that we have in our store. And I will say that we are really wanting to highlight it is first come, first serve, because some of these items, once they are gone, they are gone. We'll produce some more items later down the road, but these ones, we want folks to get access to them, and then we'll start thinking about something new. So for example, we have these scroll pens. I wish I had an example in front of me. If you, Raylan's looking around, see if she has one. If you haven't seen them before, they are just red flag campaign pens. But what you would do is you can pull out on the side of the pen and it scrolls out and has information about the red flag campaign in the little scroll. And they're so fun. I love the scroll pens because you have it right there and you can scroll out and read the information. And they're kind of fun to just fidget with too. So students really like those. And so we have those available in the store. You can get a package of 50 pens. But again, we are running low. We have about 40 of those packages left. So if you would like some pens, get them while the getting's good, because once they are gone, they will be gone. We also have some stadium cups. And so the original intent with the stadium cups was to get men on campus involved in bystander intervention initiatives. And so we were thinking these cups could be used at different events that they have on campus, or if they are tailgating, or if they're hosting parties, like folks in Greek life having a party at their house, they could offer these cups up to folks. And so the cups say on the front, another guy kept cornering my friend at the party, so I checked in with her. Another way of re-emphasizing bystander intervention, keeping each other safe. And on the back, it says, say something, and links to a website with the red flag campaign information. So those cups are available as well. They come in a package of 100. And again, once those are gone, we won't have more. So make sure you get them if you want them. And then we have t-shirts. So we have 2 different types of t-shirts. We have fitted and then we have regular. And fitted is what it sounds like. It's a little bit more fitted. Yeah, a little, I don't know what else, kind of pulled in a little bit. And then the regular is regular t-shirt that, could get anywhere. Each of these shirts come in sizes small, medium, large, extra large, and 2XL. And with the fitted shirts, Those are lower in stock. And again, once they're gone, they're gone. But the regular shirts, we have plenty and we will keep restocking those. And on the front of the shirts, they say something, and they have the Red Flag Campaign logo. And so those are great, especially again, if you're using peer educators or other staff on campus are helping you initiate the campaign. So everyone is kind of matching and coordinated when you're doing different events. So you could do it that way. Or if you're giving them out as prizes at events too, that's really awesome. People love shirts. So just know that the fitted ones won't be restocked when they're all gone, but we will have regular t-shirts available whenever you need those. And those are, I think, $18 per shirt. And so that is the items we have in our store. And so I'll next talk about scholarships, because we know some folks on their campuses have limited staff, limited resources, limited financial resources. And so if that becomes an issue for you, and we know sometimes that could be an issue for smaller campuses, we have also had folks from community colleges reach out, and even students in high schools. And so if folks are interested in some financial support to be able to afford the campaign, we do have a scholarship application. So folks can apply for a scholarship for either 25 or 50% off the campaign. So if that's something you really need, reach out to us. We'll share our email in the chat and let us know if you would like a scholarship application. And then also the scholarship application is for college campuses. So if you are, for example, a local sexual and domestic violence agency, and you're like, I want to see this red flag campaign in my community, reach out to the local campus in your area and connect with them, and then see if that's something they'd be interested in. And then we can all collaborate together to make sure that you can get what you need and make sure that it's affordable for your campus. So,
Yes,
yeah.
thank you so much, Ari, for taking us through that. And before we move on to the frameworks, want to emphasize once we share our email, yes, those to get access to those scholarship forms, but also in purchasing the campaign, you have access to the Internal Action Alliance team for ongoing technical assistance. If you're not familiar with the term technical assistance, I like to call it professional advice. So we are happy to provide support and guidance for implementation on your unique campus, what your unique needs are, yeah, the full context of how you will be implementing. If you want to get ideas, if you're like, everyone on our campus uses YouTube Shorts, how can we get YouTube Shorts tied in with the Red Flag campaign? We're always happy for an email, a phone call, a site visit, even a Zoom call, whatever it might be. We're always here to offer support once you purchase that campaign. But even if you haven't purchased the campaign, feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions or concerns after today's call, or if there's some things you're thinking about. So we will share our email and want to really emphasize that we're here to support you. You don't have to do it alone, and there's a lot of folks who have implemented it who can share their knowledge and expertise. So now we're going to get a little bit into the frameworks that inform this campaign. A lot of this knowledge is in the campus planning guide as well. So if you need language to get buy-in on your campus, that language is already there for you, talking about the prevalence of dating violence and why this is important and how the Red Flag campaign can do that. So that language is provided for you as well. And the other resources that we have will provide you with some language and some understanding of why this is what it looks like. So as we mentioned, the Red Flag campaign is a bystander intervention campaign. Just giving a shared definition, it is a strategy that teaches students to identify and safely intervene in situations that may lead to sexual violence and or dating violence. And so an effective program should be skills-based, interactive, inclusive, and accessible, well-structured, as well as be rooted in community. It works best in community settings. So that's really why we emphasize the TA to meet your specific needs. Take place over multiple sessions. We'll talk about best practices later on for prevention, but should have deep saturation, not just those one and done workshops, even though sometimes that's all we have time for. But Ari talked about that scaffolding, so building it into a larger prevention strategy. And then also contain inclusive materials that discuss gender, sexual, racial, and other identities that can impact assessment to potentially unsafe situations. And so that's the strategy that this campaign is grounded in, but a really powerful quote that we wanted to share from Know Your Nine's Campus Organizing Toolkit. Bystander intervention is an individual tool which can't on its own solve a structural problem. Bystander intervention is great, but it's not a substitute for comprehensive consent education, fair disciplinary processes, and support resources for survivors. So just sharing this not to de-emphasize or downplay the power that bystander intervention campaigns can have in shifting social norms, but it should be built out with other prevention strategies and wraparound services for folks who might have already experienced violence or trauma. And that's what we want to emphasize when you implement on your campus, that this is a toolkit. It has a menu of options, and choose what is best for you and plugging into work that you're already doing on your campus. And so you've heard us mention a lot primary prevention. Ari and I are preventionists, and that's the perspective that we're bringing to this work. For folks who aren't familiar with the term, they are strategies designed to promote healthy behaviors and communities by shifting attitudes, behaviors, I noticed a spelling error, and norms that support and perpetuate the root causes of violence. I hate it when that happens, but it always happens. And so best practices include saturation. Oh my goodness, I see another one. Saturation, theory driven, address multiple levels of the social ecological model, rooted in anti-oppression, address risk and protective factors, and informed by community needs and resources. So you see how we've added content. We're trying to move in alignment with the best practices of primary prevention. So being firmly rooted in anti-oppression, that's why we've added those sections to the posters, including microaggressions, adding it to the campus planning guide, because that's what it's needed to make real culture change, because we know violence is rooted in oppression. We also added informed by community needs and resources. So we're really trying to get in alignment. So it's not just a standalone, but is weaved into the best practices of primary prevention. And we have a graphic of our little social ecological model. If you're wondering more or want to learn more about primary prevention, please don't hesitate to reach out as it pertains to the work you do or the work that you do on campuses. And so a lot of this language around best practices of primary prevention comes from our guidelines. You might have heard us refer to this. This is a free resource. We'll put the link in the chat so you all can access it and explore it to really strengthen and build out your prevention work and what it should look like. And so we have built the Fostering Community Resilience, Virginia's Guidelines for the Primary Prevention of Sexual and Domestic Violence. It's also a beautiful document, so we encourage you all to check it out. And so it is to assist local communities in creating primary prevention strategies that focus on identifying and dismantling the root causes of sexual and domestic violence. So you see here, there's like 9 beautiful little graphics, and each one is a guideline to what prevention work should include to really shift the culture. And so some of the things are rooted in health promotion, creativity across the lifespan, and it details how you can do that with your community as well as other resources. And something that's also really cool is that there are handouts to talk to community members about primary prevention. So we're pulling a lot from here, and we encourage you to check it out, even if you aren't doing the Red Flag campaign, but other prevention work on your campuses. It is a really helpful tool and helps your work be evidence informed and really make the shifts that you want to see on campus to end violence. Another resource that we want to emphasize, and this specific resource is in the Dropbox that you receive. The guidelines are not on the Dropbox, it's just on our website. But this is called Transforming Relationships, a Violence Prevention Toolkit for Peer Educators. This is a tool we made for peer education on college campuses because, yes, we want to stop violence happening to young people, but we also want to empower young people to make that change they want to see in their communities. And so that's what peer education is all about, of like, let us be supportive adults, do the logistics, whatever your dreams are, but really putting young people at the forefront of these conversations because young people know so much and are so powerful. And that's what the campaign was made with and for. And so this is a toolkit for young adults and supportive professional staff who want to create safer, thriving communities on their college campuses. This toolkit dives into foundational knowledge, key frameworks. So you'll see some of the same language around anti-oppression, healthy sexuality, as well, just in this specific context of peer education, because not all folks implement the Red Flag campaign as a peer educator strategy. But we really encourage you to tap in if you can. And there are folks who have done amazing work doing peer education with the Red Flag campaign, especially because we have that facilitator guide that comes with activities that young people can implement themselves. But there are also other activities for peer educators to use in their programming within this specific toolkit. They can be done between professional staff and the young people, or young people to young people. So they're really adaptable and they cover some different topics, but there are ways to integrate the talking points of the Red Flag campaign into the activities that we have shared here. So we encourage folks to check that out. This is free. You can check it out separate from buying the package. But again, it is included in the Dropbox when you purchase all the things, as well with the handouts and all of that. And then that, I believe, is all that we have for you today. Just wanted to give a taste, not going too deep, but we do want to pause for questions. And so folks can put questions in the chat and we'll allow folks to unmute as well. But wanting to share our email, prevention@VSDVA Alliance. So if you have any questions, any concerns, looking for TA if you have bought it in the past, that is how you can contact us, as well as asking for the scholarship form. And we encourage you to check out our website that has those guidelines and the peer educator toolkit. And check out the Red Flag campaign website to see all the things that we talked about today, as well as look around the store or any of that. And then we have this beautiful image of some of the posters from one series, just want to highlight those as well. But I will stop sharing my screen so we can see if folks have any questions. Does that sound okay, Ari?
Yes, and if folks also want to share ways that they've implemented Red Flag campaign on their campus in the chat to give folks some ideas, feel free to do that too. But we're open to any questions that folks have.
Hi, everyone. My name is Bree, pronoun she or hers. I serve as the director for the Women in Gender Equity Center at Old Dominion University. My question is more so around, I'm glad to see that y'all had done this because I had already worked with my team in-house to reimagine the Red Flag campaign to be more up to date with the current issues that students are experiencing. Do you all offer any professional development opportunities for assistant directors or directors to sit on boards to reimagine content and learning strategies, conferences or workshops? Are those opportunities available? And if so, how can we find them?
That is a good question. So I think that's definitely something we could talk about if you want to email us and we could set up a call later to give individualized support. But that would be a really interesting conversation to think about what that could look like. What do you think?
There used to be, and still is, not as robust advisory campaign for the Red Flag. And so we would love to get something like that up and running again in full force. So we can definitely dream and scheme around that. Outside of that, the Action Alliance provides a lot of trainings on different topics, including primary prevention, if you're interested in learning more. We also provide trainings around joyful sexuality, so if you want to skill up around that. And we also have another best practice guide for college staff, whether you're working in prevention on campuses and administration, and we'll share that too. But definitely connect with us, because that sounds like a really exciting opportunity to be plugged back into what's happening deeply on campuses. So thank you.
You're welcome. I'll send you all email. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions, any thoughts?
And just to reiterate too, a lot of the work that we do is focused around supporting at the Action Alliance. A lot of work we do is focused around supporting folks in Virginia. But if you're implementing the Red Flag campaign and you're in a different state or different country, we are still here to provide that support. So definitely let us know. We love to see when folks are utilizing the campaign. We have had folks, I believe, in Germany and in Canada who have used the Red Flag campaign and who have promoted it, which is really exciting. So happy to support folks wherever you are.
Any other questions before we close out today? You can come off mute or put it in the chat, whatever feels the most comfortable for you. All right, I'm going to stop recording so we can all take a big sigh together.